Penn State 38, SMU 10. My name is Connor Griffin, here to talk about the beatdown that we just got in Beaver Stadium. I was debating doing this just because it turned out to be such a bad game. I mean, for us, it was fun, but for the general public, they were pissed that this was another blowout in the college football playoff. I was debating doing it. I'm also home for the holidays. There's still football on right now. And I'm thinking, I kind of want to watch Texas Clemson, but Texas is blowing Clemson out right now. So I figured, you know what, I'll come on, I'll do a quick 20 minutes or so because I still have some thoughts, but there's not as much necessarily to talk about with this game as there have been with games in the past. Not many, ups and downs and crazy swings in this game. It was all just a beatdown of epic proportions. Before we get into that, though, I do have to give a ton of credit to the fans. I saw this game and I was very much interested in going, but I also knew I had these plans to come home. Christmas is 4 days away. Um, it's very hard to schedule travel around this time, especially me. I'm coming from out of state. It's coming from Chicago. It would have been, I don't know how much money to fly into State College for this weekend, especially considering the fact it's graduation weekend. So flying in, I probably would have flown to Philly and then driven 3 hours, or maybe I fly into Pittsburgh and then it's another 2 hours. Like it's an extremely remote campus, as we all know. It's hard to get to right before Christmas when you're throwing these plans together pretty last minute. We had a feeling that we would get a home playoff game, but we didn't know officially until 2 weeks ago. So getting there would be an issue. Flights would be expensive. Hotels, we know, are expensive for any Penn State home football game. But then you throw in the fact that it's the first playoff game we've ever had, and it's graduation weekend, as I said, and hotels, they were going for like 1,200 a night. And that was the cheapest rate that I saw. So yeah, the game tickets, as everybody pointed out online, were cheap. You could get into the stadium pretty easily, but getting to State College, that was a logistical nightmare, and it's part of the reason why I didn't go. But for the fans to show out the way that they did, because I was concerned. I don't know how many people are going to be at this game. I don't know if we're going to get close to a sellout, especially when the students aren't even in session right now. They're on break. 106,000, and they made it known that they were there. I mean, there were several plays in this game, whether it was causing false starts or SMU had to call timeout. They were loud, and from all accounts, whether it was the people who were in town last night or the people who are now reporting from the game, it was electric in State College. Like people were fired up, even though it was a crappy noon kickoff. But again, this, as I've said before, this deserved to be a noon kickoff. This was the worst matchup by far out of any of these first round playoff games. And as we saw on the scoreboard, it proved to be that way. It was a terrible matchup. But hey, if you're James Franklin and if you're Penn State, all you had to do was win and get to the next round. You didn't just win, you demolished SMU. So you got to give them a huge credit. And again, got to give the fans a ton of credit for the way that they showed out in this one today. It was so appealing to watch on ESPN, or not ESPN, on TNT. It was the ESPN crew on TNT. I won't get too much into it. It was a bad broadcast, but again, it's the worst game of the weekend. It was the D team on TNT. It's whatever. It's whatever. I guess to start off, yeah, what a selling point and what a pitch for this university and for this football program. The aerial shots that they were showing at Beaver Stadium and the whiteout crowd, it looked awesome. It looked incredible. And we took advantage of the opportunity. All eyes were on us. We knew it's a playoff game, high stakes. The national general public is going to be watching this game, and we gave them a show. And we put on the Generations of Greatness uniforms, which that was a shock. They dropped that last night, and I do genuinely believe it was Franklin, the athletic department, everybody just getting all behind this, the marketing team, and saying, okay, how can we capitalize on this the most? Obviously, it hurt that it wasn't at night, but still, we're going to do a whiteout. We're going to throw in the alternate uniforms. We're going to do the Generations of Greatness. We're going to put everything behind this home playoff game to show, hey, you're a high school recruit, or you're somebody in the transfer portal, or you're a fan who's debating whether or not you want to donate money. This is why you should be a part of this, because this is awesome. And it was. So kudos to everybody involved. It was a great show. The stadium looked amazing. The team looked amazing, even though, and we'll just get into the game right now, we won that game 38-10, which was pretty misleading. It was 38-3 before we put in our backups, and Ethan Grunkmeyer throws an interception on his very first pass attempt of his career. even though we were destroying them, I don't think that was anywhere close to our A performance, our A plus performance. That was not the best game that we played all year. Not it wasn't even close. That was like a C performance in my opinion. Not to say that the players weren't trying, not to say that they were, slow throughout this game and they were like sleepwalking essentially. No, I thought they came out and they had, I mean, physically, they just totally imposed their will on SMU, and the effort was there, but execution. Um, there were plenty of drives offensively where we just didn't look right. I thought Drew Aller was off all day. That was nowhere near being his best game. It was not that great of a performance by us. But still, you look up at the scoreboard at the end of the half, we're up 28 nothing. I'm like, this is crazy. And then at the end of the game, again, it's 38-3 before the backups let up a touchdown. So it was insane. Maybe it's a testament to just how bad SMU is and how they didn't deserve to be in the playoff, or maybe it's just we have dudes and we just dominated them today. I don't know. Obviously, it helps that our defense goes and gets 14 points, which, yeah, I just got to say, hand up because I criticize Dom DeLuca all the time, all the time. There are routine plays I see from him every week that I don't think he makes that he should be making. And then he comes forward, the Minnesota game, he has an interception. Today, he has a pick six. He's the first person to score for Penn State in the college football playoff. Not Drew Aller, not Nick Singleton, not Katron Allen, not Tyler Warren. It's Dom DeLuca. He's the one who scored the first points for Penn State ever in the playoff era. Um, he also had another crazy interception where he bats the ball up and he tips it to himself and he catches it. I apologize, I guess. I don't know. Again, I still don't think he's great at making the routine plays, but then every now and then he comes through with these interceptions, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And for him, somebody who Franklin pointed this out in the post game, somebody who walked on and earned a scholarship and became a captain. We're not going to see many more of those types of people, if any people at all, with this new rule where they're shrinking the roster size and everybody's going to be on scholarship, with the 105 rule. So for him in the first game in Beaver Stadium, somebody who played in Pennsylvania and wanted to come to Penn State and worked his way up at Penn State, that this was a really cool moment for him. And he, yeah, probably is MVP of the day. Not to mention, we'll get to the second interception in a second. But continuing on with the defense, obviously Tony Rojas had another great pick six. He's a very, very athletic guy who I think hasn't necessarily lived up to what I expected for him this year. Again, a lot of it is like making the routine play. He's fast, he can cover, he has great hands, as we've seen, but can he make a tackle in open space? Can he wrap up? Like those are the things. Tom Allen has even said, he pointed out in a press conference one time, like we need to get Tony Rojas better at tackling. He's getting there, but he came up big today and he was all over the field. Linebackers, Tyler Elsdon almost had an interception today. They were ferocious, and you got to give them a ton of credit. Same goes for the defensive line. They were just making Kevin Jennings. He was in hell. He was in hell for 4 quarters. He was so rattled. The crowd again, going back to the crowd, he had his hands over his helmet almost the entire game because he couldn't hear. He couldn't hear the helmet communication. And then once the play got going, he was just constantly being swarmed. And he's a dynamic quarterback. He's got legs. He can move. There were some times where he was able to escape pressure, but for the most part, he was getting swallowed and he had no idea what to do. No idea what to do. And that's a big part of the reason why we had those 3 interceptions because, well, the last one by Dom DeLuca, that was just a great play by Dom DeLuca. But those first two, he was just throwing to our defenders, throwing right to him because he was pressured. The D line, the edge rushers, they were getting to him, and he just didn't know what to do, and he would just chuck it right to us. So huge credit to the defense, even though, and again, that's why like it felt so weird because just like I didn't think that the offense necessarily played their A game. There were many plays by the defense where I would also say I don't think they played their A game. But when they dialed up the pressure, oh my God, they were unstoppable. They were unstoppable. When they dialed up the pressure, it was the best defense I've ever seen. But there were many times where they were missing tackles and we allowed guys to get way more yardage than they should have. Some of SMU's biggest plays on the day came from them breaking tackles in that second level of the defense. I'm like, we could have had them for like a 3 yard gain. Instead, they get 15. That was the issue today. But again, when they dialed up pressure and when it was third down, fourth down, or God forbid, SMU was in the red zone, they tightened up. They really did. So huge credit to them, even though, again, I think there's still some stuff lingering about this defense that I worry about. And maybe it was just the lesser quality of opponent today that propped them up as much as they were. And if we were to play another team on the same level as Ohio State or Oregon, maybe that defense wouldn't be looking as ferocious as it did today. But I don't know. I'm just gonna enjoy it today. I'm not gonna nitpick Tom Allen. I loved seeing him on the broadcast. He's up in the booth, and after that, I think it was the Tony Rojas pick six. He's banging on the glass of the booth, and I loved seeing that. So credit to him. Defense played great. Only give up 10 points, and again, seven of those came when the backups were in. Huge, huge credit. And it was looking a bit, I don't want to say dire, but it was looking a bit sketchy at first with the defense because that first drive from SMU, we had just had a 3-and-out offensively, and then our defense comes on the field. SMU was running tempo, and I mean tempo, tempo. And we were struggling to keep up with it. They move all the way downfield. They get what was it, a 4th and 1? Or a short fourth down where they're on the road in Beaver Stadium, clearly, punching upwards. They need to make a real mark on this game. And it was early and they had a chance to go up 7-0. So they decided to go for it. Kevin Jennings, they do this bootleg and he had the first down running the football. He could have easily picked up the first, would have gotten clearly past the marker. And instead, his tight end opens up in the end zone, so he decides to throw it. It was a bad pass behind the tight end. We break it up, turnover on downs. But for a second there, I was holding my breath. I was like, oh, this might not be good. We might be off to a really slow start once again. And if it's a better throw, it's a touchdown. If he keeps it and they keep going tempo after picking up the first, I think they score. Like, thankfully, that did not work out. And from that point forward, it was all Penn State. All Penn State. And Kevin Jennings was just lost. So again, kudos to the defense, kudos to Tom Allen. They played great today, even though there's still some stuff in there that I think we could clean up moving forward once we face better competition down the line. Offensively, Drew, as I said, did not play anywhere near his best game. What I liked about him is that he's still very comfortable utilizing his legs, even though now he doesn't have Bo Perbula as a backup. It's Grunkmeyer, who hasn't played at all, except for, the couple snaps that they got today. He's still comfortable moving and he's still comfortable running for the first and taking some hits. That has been such a blessing. The fact that he's now able to use his legs, because there are still plenty of times where the receivers are not open at all. And he, instead of trying to force something or throw it out of bounds, he's like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to keep it, run for a first down. He picks it up. He's super efficient when it comes to using his legs. But there were plenty of throws today that, yeah, he didn't have it. Didn't have it. Um, he had two, maybe three, where he was able to rifle it in, and it was like, wow, yeah, that's Drew Aller. But otherwise, I didn't think he had a really impressive game, and thankfully the run game was able to get going. I mean, Nick and Katron both had 6.4 yards a carry. That's pretty solid. That'll do, especially after 2 weeks ago against Oregon, where they were able to really get going. Like, we're figuring out something with the run game. And SMU, that was the pride of their team. Yes, they had a dynamic quarterback, but more so, I think they were the fourth best rushing defense in the country coming into this game. And we were able to run pretty solid on them. Pretty solid. I think we had 180 yards on the ground. Yeah, it was really a great performance. It took a while to get there, but throughout the course of the game, we just started beating them down at the line of scrimmage, and just physically, they were no match for us. It was really, really cool to see. I worry about the special teams. Huge shout out to Ryan Barker. That dude is just nails. I love him. It was only a 40-yarder that he hit, and it was very, very short, and it came close to missing, just short. But the wind, the conditions, he still was able to hit it. And then otherwise, I worry. I worry about the kickoffs. We had a kickoff go out of bounds today. Punting, I still think, is a major problem. Major problem. Riley Thompson, in a real opportunity to switch field position and really pin them deep. He can't come up with the right punt to pin them deep in the 10 or the 5. There was one we were punting essentially from midfield today, and it wound up he got it to like the 20, and then that was it. So I worry about him. We're not really making up grounds in the field position game. So we just really have to rely on our offense to come out and move the chains and really sustain drives because if we're having to punt from deep in our own territory, we're screwed. We're screwed. So I think overall, this was like a C effort today. Wasn't anything super spectacular. We just have more dudes. We were able to make Kevin Jennings feel really uncomfortable from start to finish. That the crowd played a huge factor in the game, and we were able to come up with a big time thumping in this one. Now, I do have to address something, and this is what I kind of alluded to earlier on in the video, and I talked about it with Dom DeLuca's second pick. If I'm James Franklin, I tweeted this. I am hugging and thanking Dom DeLuca 10 times over for Dom DeLuca forcing that interception when SMU had the ball on our own. I forget what it was within our own 10. They had, goal to go, and Dom DeLuca forces an interception. I mean, James Franklin should be thanking his lucky stars that that was not a touchdown for SMU because at that point it was 14 to nothing. Your offense had the ball. Penn State offense had the ball at the 18 or the 19, deep in our own territory. It's a 4th and 1. You have all the momentum. You're up 14. Your defense is making, at this point, he's thrown 2 pick sixes. Your defense is causing hell for Kevin Jennings. Punt the ball away, even though, again, as I just said, not super confident in Riley Thompson's punting abilities, but still punt the ball away, make them start on, their own side of the 50. We'll probably push him back. Who knows? Maybe we get another pick six. Like your defense is playing lights out right now. Give up, cut your losses. Franklin decides to go for it on 4th and 1 from our own 18 or 19-yard line. We don't get it because he said in the post game it was a fumbled snap. We bobbled it or something like that on the QB sneak. We give the ball to SMU. They're able to get off a couple plays to get within the 10. Their goal to go, about to make it a 14-7 game in a game that we had all the momentum. We had sucked the life out of them. We had them dead in the water. All you needed to do was keep up the defensive intensity, and we were going to roll them. We decided to give them the ball at the 20 because we couldn't pick up the 4th down, and it could have been a completely different ball game. But Dom DeLuca comes up with the tip ball, tips it up to himself, catches it, runs for the intercept. Like Franklin is so lucky. I'm telling, I am thanking him like crazy. I'm hugging, I'm kissing everything. I am doing whatever I can to make sure Dom DeLuca knows, hey, you just saved my ass. But Franklin, I don't know if he operates like that. Obviously, he's going to praise Dom DeLuca for making the play. Don't get me wrong; he's not going to like shun his players or anything. If they make a big play, he's going to thank him. He's going to hug him. He's going to do all that type of stuff. He's an emotional relationship type of guy. I'm saying I don't think he's thinking like, oh my God, DeLuca just saved my ass. I think he's so confident that that was the right play call because he always says he's like, well, if it works, you guys love it. If it doesn't work, then you guys hate it. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I have to be aggressive. It's not that though. It's not that though. And I talk about this with people a lot. Part of the problem with Franklin in these big games is that we are uncharacteristically aggressive, whether it's going for two, which we never do, and pulling out all these razzle dazzle trick plays, whether it's going for it when we're deep within our own territory and just deciding, yeah, if we don't get this one, we're going to give our defense an extremely short field where they're going to have to try and be like pull off a miracle to stop the opposing team from getting out of the end zone or from getting into the end zone. Pardon me. Uh, we're pulling out all these stops for no reason. And he'll say he chalks it up to, well, we're in a big game. We got to be aggressive. And he said in his post game, he was like, I would call that again. Dude, you're on the 18. You're on the 19. Even if we had picked that up, I would have said that was fucking crazy. Part of my French. I would have said that was bizarre what you just did right there. And I would not have liked it for the record. And I know it's easy to say that in hindsight. I would not have liked it, even if we had picked up the first, even if we went for 10 yards on a QB sneak. I would not have liked that. I don't agree with it. The context of the game is what matters. He's saying, "Oh, well, it's a big game. We have to be aggressive no matter what." That's alarming. That's a really alarming sentiment to have. And that's almost pretty much verbatim what he said in the postgame. He was like, I came into this game telling everybody we needed to be aggressive. And if I had punted it on 4th and 1, then that's not being aggressive. Dude, feel the game. And people say, well, Connor, you love the fake punt in the Minnesota game where Luke Reynolds was able to scamper for 30 yards and we picked up the 4th down conversion there. You only liked it because it worked. But if it hadn't worked, then you would have crucified him. To which I would have said, no, because given the context of the game, the fact that we were only up by 1 point, we would be willingly giving the ball back to Minnesota in pretty good field position with 3 or 4 minutes left to play. I think at that point it was like 4 minutes. And our defense was not reliable that entire game. I am completely fine with you taking the risk and trying to end the game on your own terms. I'm fine with that. In that situation, if we hadn't gotten the fourth, again, it's easy to say now in hindsight, but I would have been totally fine with that because in the moment, I was thinking to myself, I don't think it's that crazy if we were to go for this here. Today, I wasn't even thinking about whether or not it would be crazy because I didn't even think it was a possibility that we would be going for it on 4th down from our own 18 or 19 when we have a 14-point lead and we were dominating them on the defensive side of the ball. Our defense was swarming them. We're just going to give them the ball on the 20 if we don't pick this up. What are we doing? So that's the issue here. And I know, we won 38-10. And I shouldn't be focusing so much on one specific play call, one specific decision made by Franklin here when we just absolutely dominated them for 4 quarters. But that's concerning. And again, it's a common trend for Franklin in these big games, whether it's going for it on 4th down, whether it's going for two, whether it's pulling out all these like trick plays that we never run. We coach outside of ourselves. This is not what we do. We are not aggressive in these ways. You have to feel the game out. I don't know if it's analytics that's dictated. I don't know what it is, or if he's just trying to prove like, no, I can coach and I can out coach people, and I'm going to show people that this is who I am. I don't know. I have no idea. There's a lot of narratives about James Franklin out there, and that one, the big game James and how he's makes these dumb decisions. Today's did not help. On the flip side, this was a big game. This was a playoff game. This was a playoff game in your home stadium. If you had lost it, I would possibly have to call for James Franklin's job. And I'm a pretty moderate guy, I would say. I don't get too like tempered, even though some people might disagree if they watch me on mostly sports and all that type of stuff. But when it comes to James Franklin, I'm pretty measured. I'd like to think that I'm a rational guy. I'm not out here chanting "Fire Franklin" after every single loss. I'm also not a guy who's going to be like, glazing him and saying all these like wonderful things about him. I love him. I love him as a coach. I don't think we could do much better than him. There are a lot of programs. He's right about this. I don't think he has to say it for himself, but there are a lot of programs, as he says, that would die to be in our position and be as consistent as we are every single year. I appreciate all of that, and I love what he's done for Penn State, and I love having him as our head coach. But this game today, if you had lost it, it would have had to have been like, okay, dude, you're on the hot seat. You're on the hot seat going into 2025. This is, Drew Aller coming back and everything for next year. That's your last chance because that would be ridiculous if we lost this one today. So, given all that pressure, the fact that we've been knocking at the door for so long and now we finally get into the playoff, you needed to take advantage of this one today. And we didn't just win, we destroyed them, crushed their spirit. They looked, I mean, like little kids out there. Just SMU, I'm talking about. Just like JV team at so many times in this game. And we just destroyed them, just completely annihilated them. So you have to give James credit. He was ready for the occasion. It was a perfect game to put on tape and to show the rest of the world, like Penn State's here to play. What was that, an 8.5 point spread? Beat him by 28. It was solid. So players are ready to play. As I said, I don't think it was necessarily an amazing, stellar performance, but I mean, clearly did enough to win the game. So huge credit to everybody. What a day in State College. What a day for Penn State. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. We go on to play Boise now in the Fiesta Bowl. Ironically, I'll look into it tonight just to, see exactly what the pricing is. I would imagine that's probably cheaper to go to than what it was to go to this game at Penn State today. But I'm excited. The run has officially commenced. We've talked about how easy the path is. We've talked about how Penn State pretty much has a golden opportunity to get to the national championship. There, so far, people are saying like, oh, well, it's going to end in the semifinals. I don't know. I really don't know. You see that Notre Dame Indiana game last night? Indiana was really bad, but I don't know if Notre Dame is all that great. Georgia has a backup quarterback who's probably going to be playing for them throughout the rest of the playoff. We would get one of those two teams, Notre Dame or Georgia, in the semifinal, and it's not like we're having to face Ohio State or Oregon. Like we might go to the playoff. We might go to the playoff national championship. I don't know. I don't know. Getting too ahead of ourselves. We got Boise next week, 1-0. But this was a really reassuring sign today that we were not gonna back down from the moment. We came out ready to play, and huge, huge, huge credit to the fans who showed out for making that an all-time atmosphere at Beaver Stadium today. Penn State, first win of the playoff. We're here. Now let's go on a run. Let's beat Boise State. Yeah, maybe let's go to a national championship. I don't want to say it too much. I don't want to say it too much, but that's what I'm thinking in my head right now. It's hard not to. There's so much optimism, and I cannot wait for December 31st, New Year's Eve in Glendale. I'll probably be on talking about that game. I assume so. If not, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and I will catch you next time. We are.